Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff's career crossroad before US Open sparks urgent plan from Serena Williams' ex-coach. A disastrous season, committing 430 double faults, with her serves in 2024 led Coco Gauff to make significant changes ahead of her 2025 journey. After parting ways with ex-trainer Brad Gilbert, she brought in Matt Daly to work alongside longtime coach Jean-Christophe Forel to provide tips on turning her weakness into her strength. Initially, it seemed the change was fruitful, but soon the vulnerabilities began to resurface. To everyone's surprise, Gauff ended up topping the list for double faults again this season. In fact, she had already committed 234 DFs on her serves before the Wimbledon last month, and things continue to look dicey, especially after her recent heartbreak in Cincinnati. There, her serving woes continued to haunt her. But ahead of the US Open, a top coach has now come up with a warning signal and a fix for the world number 2 in case she fails to make necessary adjustments in time. So I'm looking for a coach to help me develop in the long-term process and try to help make my game as complete as I can be. That's what Gauff was hoping for after adding Daly to her camp. However, the outcome this season has been far from expectations. One look at her serving woes, and you get the idea of how miserable the situation has been. It's not just the first serve, but her second serve too. The inconsistency has led to Gauff committing endless double faults in big tournaments. This week, during her underwhelming performance against Jasmine Paolini, who beat her in the QF stage at the Cincinnati, she had 16. Before that, she had 43 in just 3 matches at the Canadian Open, 42 in Rome back in May, and 38 during the Indian Wells all the way back in March. That's scary, right? Well, legendary tennis coach Rick Matchy believes the same. Matchy trained 23 times Slam Queen Serena Williams back in the early 90s. For 4 years, during her childhood phase, the younger Williams' sister learned essential tips from him before exploding onto the professional circuit. Now, Matchy thinks Coco Gauff has potential to touch greatness. However, he's now come up with a serious suggestion on her nightmarish phase. Obviously, it's regarding her service motion, plus the forehand strokes. In an ex-post he wrote, "Coco will be okay as she fights and knows how to play. But to ever breathe rare air, she has to address the alarming red flare. She is at a career crossroad with the second serve and forehand. So what could be the solution?" Matchy suggests the world number 2 needs a science-based plan. This will not magically go away and bubbles up more under extreme pressure that particular day. Interestingly, it's not the first time Matchy has expressed his concerns over Gauff. In an interaction with Tennis 365, few days back, he mentioned similar sentiments. Think about it. Her wide serve to the deuce court is one of the best in the world, but then in the same breath, we're talking about she leads the WTA Tour in double faults. So there's a disconnect. Now, what's interesting here is the choice of Gauff having 2 coaches at the moment, just for the purpose of improving her technique. Yet the fate remains unchanged. The US Open is almost knocking on the door, and the woes still exist. That's what another notable figure has highlighted recently. And she didn't mince words in questioning Gauff's internal decisions. Former WTA icon raises doubts on Coco Gauff's coaches. Earlier this month, Coco Gauff lost her a 16 match against a teenager, Canada's Victoria Mboko. The 18-year-old prodigy bested Gauff in straight sets with a brutal score line of 6-1, 6-4. Not to mention, she eventually lifted the trophy as well in Montreal. She became the first Canadian in 6 years to do so after compatriot Bianca Andreescu. Following this result, ex-WTA pro Rennie Stubbs couldn't help but wonder about the American's unending service problem. During an episode of her podcast, Stubbs raised a big question mark on Gauff's team. "I don't understand why now she has literally 2 coaches." For Stubbs, nothing has changed on her serve, like the ball toss is so far ahead of her on the second serve. In a post on X from weeks ago, she even mentioned how Gauff can eliminate her weakness. Addressing the serve motion, she wrote, "So she's already sort of leaning into the court. So if you're leaning into the court, you're going to fall into the court," which she does. And then she was going to always hit down on the ball. And you have to hit up. The former tennis icon further mentioned that, "You have to hit up, and you have to stay up, and you have to hit. And I call it 7 p.m. on a ball, right? If you think about a ball being a clock, she hits at like 1 p.m. She needs to hit at 7 p.m. right on the end of the ball to get the kick serve." What are your thoughts on Coco Gauff's journey leading into the U.S. Open? Will she succeed in overcoming her ongoing woes in time? Or will the 21-year-old keep committing more double faults? Let us know in the comments below. Crossroads and comebacks. Coco Gauff's turning point. The summer air in Florida was thick with heat and uncertainty. On the practice courts outside of Delray Beach, a young tennis prodigy stood quietly at the baseline, her racket dangling loosely in her hand. Coco Gauff, just 20 but already a veteran of headlines and expectations, stared across the net, not at an opponent, but at a crossroads. She had felt it coming for months. The questions had shifted, from wonder to worry. Was Coco peaking too soon? Could she handle the pressure? Would she ever live up to the mountain of expectation left in the wake of Serena Williams' farewell? The 2025 season hadn't been kind. Early exits in Melbourne and Paris had left her doubting not only her game, but her identity as a competitor. The serve that once sizzled now sputtered. The forehand, a once dependable weapon, had become a liability. She still had the legs, the fight, the charisma, but something deeper was off. Something intangible. And then came the crossroads. A call from the past. "Let's be honest, Coco," her father had said during a quiet dinner in late July. "You're not playing free anymore." She hadn't argued. She knew it was true. That same night, she made a call to the one person she believed could understand her better than anyone else in tennis, Patrick Mouratoglou. He answered on the second ring. "Coco," he said, as if he'd been expecting her. Mouratoglou, the mastermind behind Serena Williams' second act, had always believed in Coco's raw athleticism and mental fortitude. He saw the same storm of fire and finesse in her that he once saw in Serena. But he also recognized the growing cloud of pressure that could break a young player too early. "I've been watching," he said. "You're fighting yourself more than your opponents." Coco didn't deny it. "I'm at a crossroads, Patrick," she admitted, "and I don't know which way to go." There was a pause. Then, the urgency in his voice emerged like a coach dialing up a play with the clock winding down. "Then let's change the map." Reinvention in the shadows. 3 weeks before the U.S. Open, Gauff vanished from the public eye. No media appearances. No practice sessions on public courts. She flew to Mouratoglou's academy in the south of France under the radar, escaping the relentless American spotlight for a quiet cocoon of reinvention. There, under the Mediterranean sun, Patrick didn't start with her forehand or her footwork. He started with silence. For 2 days, he made her sit courtside and watch other players train. "Observe. Reflect," he told her. "You need to remember why you play." On the third day, he handed her a racket. "No drills," he said. "Just play. No score. No coaches. Just you and the court." By the end of the week, the rust began to fall away. Coco was moving freely again, grinning after inside-out winners, daring herself to hit sharper angles. The joy was returning. But Patrick knew joy alone wouldn't win the U.S. Open. The urgent plan. Behind the scenes, Mouratoglou was constructing a 3-phase plan. A crash course in recalibration. Phase 1, clean mechanics. Her forehand had developed a hitch under pressure. Mouratoglou reworked her technique, shortening the backswing, streamlining her contact point, and reestablishing muscle memory with hundreds of balls a day. Phase 2, mental decompression. They brought in a sports psychologist, not to rebuild her confidence, but to unearth the fear underneath. Coco spoke openly about expectations, comparisons to Serena, and the haunting feeling of being a brand before being a person. "People want me to be Serena," she confessed. "And you're not," Mouratoglou said. "You're Coco. That's more than enough." Phase 3, tactical aggression. Patrick knew the modern game was about first strikes and calculated aggression. They studied Iga Swiatek, Aryna Sabalenka, and Naomi Osaka, how they dictated rallies and controlled pace. He pushed Coco to step inside the baseline, take the ball early, and own her serve like a weapon, not a liability. Every practice was a blueprint for Flushing Meadows. She has the tools, Muratoglu said to his team. We just need to remind her she knows how to use them. The New York moment. By the time Gauff arrived in New York, the media buzz was back, but different. She was no longer just a prodigy or the hope of American tennis. She was a question mark, a wild card of potential redemption. First-round nerves? Of course. But she fought through them with new calm. Her footwork was lighter, her serve faster. The forehand? Still tested, but steadier. As the rounds passed, the tennis world leaned in. Analysts noticed the transformation. This is a different Coco, said Chris Everett from the commentary box. You can see Patrick's fingerprints all over her game. By the quarterfinals, she'd taken out two seeded players and was playing with that unmistakable Gauff fire, roaring at the crowd, pumping her fist, and running down balls most wouldn't dare chase. After each match, she pointed not to her box, but to herself, a small but powerful signal. This is me. Not a copy. Not a product. Me. The Serena echo. On the eve of her semifinal, Serena Williams sent a message. A simple one. Play for the girl who first picked up the racket. She knew. Coco sat with that message for a long time. She knew exactly what Serena meant. The girl who picked up that racket in Delray Beach a decade ago wasn't thinking about trophies or sponsorships. She was chasing a feeling. A moment of magic where everything made sense. She had found that again in France, and now she was ready to show the world. Beyond the baseline, win or lose, the U.S. Open became Coco Gauff's proving ground, not to the critics, but to herself. The crossroads hadn't broken her. It had redirected her. And behind her, Muratoglu watched not as the architect of her comeback, but as the mentor who simply reminded her what was already inside. After a tough, brilliant three-set final, Gauff fell just short of the title. But as she stood at center court, sweat-drenched and smiling, the crowd didn't see a disappointment. They saw a warrior reborn. And so did she. Epilogue: The road ahead. Weeks later, in a quiet interview away from the glare of cameras, Gauff reflected on the turning point. I thought I needed to be someone else to win, she said. But the truth is, I just needed to come back to myself. Muratoglu, watching from across the room, nodded quietly. The crossroads hadn't been a dead end. It had been the beginning of a better road.